Exclusive contract novel from Feilu Novel Network. I built a red alert base in the Golden Triangle. Wang Yao traveled through time and became a Chinese piglet who was scammed into the Golden Triangle by black intermediaries, narrowly missing his waist. Fortunately, during a critical moment, he activated the red alert system and recruited red alert soldiers to fight against warlords and drug lords in the Golden Triangle. However, this no-matter zone has become a human purgatory. In order to protect himself, Wang Yao constantly recruited red police soldiers to develop his power and build military readiness. Transcendental Core. French Cannon. Weather Controller. Iron Curtain Device. Crack Generator. A behemoth rises from the Golden Triangle and begins to stir up the world. Feilu Novel Network reminds you that this novel and its characters are purely fictional. If there are any similarities, they are purely coincidental and should not be imitated. Chapter 1. Just as I crossed the border, I was about to be killed by Ga Yaozi. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. Just as I crossed the border, I was about to be killed by Ga Yaozi. Get up, piggy. With a loud shout, Wang Yao suddenly woke up from his slumber. But as soon as I opened my eyes, I was hurt by the bright light above my head, so I quickly narrowed my eyes. Pop. Oh no. Stop fighting. Ah. It hurts so much. At this moment, a series of shouts echoed around, mixed with the sounds of anger and belt whips. After his eyes adapted, Wang Yao realized that he was in a small room, with a layer of bamboo mat on the ground. More than a dozen young men and women who looked like Chinese were curled up together, beaten in pain, crying and begging for mercy. And several tall men with darker skin held rifles in the direction of the door. They are led by a man wearing a suit and leather shoes. The man who had just woken up Wang Yao and the others was picking up the whipping belt and re-tying it, and then walked up to the man in front of him and said, "Brother Shah, these piglets can no longer squeeze oil and water. Those with some skills have been taken away by the communication and gaming teams, and that's all left." Speaking, the man pointed to Wang Yao and others. The man in the suit frowned and said, "Is there no oil or water left?" These people were communicating in Chinese with local accents in front of Wang Yao and others, which immediately caused panic among everyone. A man with glasses ran up to the man in a suit and said, "You said you would let us go back after paying the money." Before he could finish speaking, a strong man behind the man in a suit stepped forward and shot a butt at the man with glasses. Directly hit the man with glasses on the ground, his glasses flew off and his face was swollen. The rough and violent behavior frightened the group of Chinese people into screaming. Shiij was very satisfied with the reactions of these people and said to the younger brother just now, "As usual, the man should try the online group, the woman should send it to the socialite group for training, and if it's useless, let the health group prepare the matching." Upon hearing Shah Ji's words, Chinese men and women begged for mercy one after another, but due to the experience of the glasses man just now, they dared not step forward and could only cry and shout continuously. "As for this person, take him and bury him." Shah Go prepared to intimidate these people, so he asked the younger brother to take away the man with glasses who had just collided with him. A group of young men and women could only watch helplessly as the man with glasses cried and was taken away by several big men. In no time, Shah Go and others also left and locked the door. In the narrow room, only a group of young men and women with no door left for help were crying softly. Wang Yao leaned against the wall, watching the bright light above his head, and finally received the message. The man he traveled through, also known as Wang Yao, was an ordinary college graduate from Longwa. After graduation, he found a well-paying job. Just a few days after entering the industry, he met a company that organized a large-scale team building and a 7-day trip to Southeast Asia. Then a group of dozens of people flew to the Kingdom of Siam, but as soon as they got off the plane, they fell into a daze on the bus. After waking up, everything on their bodies was confiscated and they were told that they were located in Mengsa County, Wa State, Myanmar, which is the infamous Golden Triangle. Their team manager transformed into a leader in the southern division of the Wa State Economic Zone in Myanmar. They are required to demand ransom from their families, ranging from 300,000 to 500,000 yuan. Those who refuse to comply will be beaten and tortured. And once their families obediently deposit money into an overseas account, what awaits them will be more ransom demands. In short, it's about squeezing out every drop of oil and water. Until now, like Wang Yao and his family, there was no ransom or they refused to pay it again. Some skilled individuals may be caught in other departments, such as communication groups, engaged in telecommunications fraud. For example, game teams develop online gambling games. And people without skills, such as Wang Yao and his group of more than 10 people now, some will be caught in the online group, victims of dark web live streaming, and the financial owners who watch live streaming can use various cruel methods on the victims as long as they pay enough money. Women will be sent to the socialite group to force them to have sex, while those with some beauty will be trained as playthings, given to the big shots above, or provided to other entertainment clubs in the Kingdom of Siam and Myanmar. As for those who refuse to cooperate or have already broken down, they will be sent to the health department. There, black doctors will conduct physical examinations on them, obtain various data, and then perform database matching. If it matches the Gold Lord, congratulations. You will have a certain body organ removed and die in pain, with your body buried in this vast mountainous area. If there is no match for the gold owner, you will be kept in captivity like a pig or dog, forming a humanoid blood pack that continuously draws blood until a gold owner matches you. It can be said that this dark industrial chain has squeezed a person's value to the extreme. These pieces of information were told to them by the former manager named Shagu, with the aim of encouraging them to cooperate obediently and better extract oil and water. Thinking back on these things, Wang Yao couldn't help but touch his waist, feeling that it had begun to ache faintly. But just letting it be dealt with like this will definitely not work. Either escape or resist. Ding! The red alarm system is activated. Just as Wang Yaozi was pondering what to do, a magical scene appeared before his eyes. Red alert related information deleted from this world. The system is loaded and ready to serve you at any time. Your Excellency Commander. Rows of text appeared before his eyes, as if floating in front of him. Wang Yao reached out to touch, but he didn't touch anything. The people around were immersed in pain, and no one noticed Wang Yao's abnormality. What are you? Wang Yao withdrew his hand and asked in his mind. A new line of words appeared before my eyes. I am the Red Alert system, which can help commanders dominate the world. Wang Yao remembered his favorite Red Alert game, so he tried to call up the game page. What caught the eye was a map, which was the Science and Technology Park where Wang Yao was imprisoned. Although there were no satellites yet and it was not possible to see too far away, there was a view of the area within a radius of 100 kilometers. Through the system, Wang Yao learned that the technology park they were in was located in Menghai Town, a small town under Mengsa County, situated in the mountains. It is the southern military district of the Wa State United Army, a local warlord. To the north is the area controlled by the Eastern Shan State Army, to the west is the area controlled by the Southern Shan State Army and the Kaya ethnic group. More than 70 kilometers to the east is the Mekong River, and across the river is Laos. However, there is also a border city in Shan State that requires crossing mountains and mountains. Under the control of local militia groups, there are many troops stationed. 50 kilometers to the south is the Chiang Rai prefecture of the Kingdom of Siam, which is also a stronghold of warlords. A small place with 3 countries and several factions, and many mountain villages marked as neutral. And this is just a small area in the Golden Triangle region. Wang Yao looked at the red police base, power plant, barracks, tank factory on the architectural layout above, recruiting various distinctive units such as Red Alert soldiers, engineers, and Chrono Corps. On the recruitment page there are also French cannons, nuclear missile launchers, weather controllers, hyperspace teleportation devices. I suddenly realized that traveling here may not be a bad thing. Chapter 2. Red Alert Soldiers. Strike with a heavy punch. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. Red Alert Soldiers. Strike with a heavy punch. But now there is a problem. Wang Yao is locked up and there is no place to expand the base. Although he saw the Red Alert base vehicle waiting to be deployed from the initial interface, he was unable to deploy it at all. And the Red Alert soldiers and Grizzly Bear tanks accompanying the Red Alert base vehicles were also unable to deploy. At this point, the system prompts, "Commander, please set the unit information first." The system pops up a branch interface, where you can set various information such as the race, language, average height, average age, and most importantly, equipment allocation for Red Alert soldiers. The system initially assigned a 120-person infantry platoon and a tank platoon equipped with 3 Grizzly Bear tanks. So, while others were crying for the impending tragic fate, Wang Yao had already started setting up his own soldiers. Of course, the race is Han, the language is Chinese, the average height is 1.8 meters, and the average age is 20 years old. Each soldier is equipped with a basic set of combat uniforms, tactical helmets, bulletproof vests, tactical mirrors, optical equipment, and carrying gear. The main weapon is an M4A1 automatic rifle, and the secondary weapon is the Glock 17 pistol. Red Alert Infantry Explanation. A junior infantry soldier with 24 months of service experience, but each one is an excellent warrior. Price: 200 funds. Woo-woo, what should Aaron do? Will he be killed? Just as Wang Yao finished setting up his troops and was preparing to deploy soldiers, the crying voice of the girl next to him came over. Wang Yao turned his head and saw several girls holding each other, crying softly. One of the girls was worried about the man with glasses who had just been taken away. They are lovers, but she didn't do anything just now, not even make a sound. Novice Mission. Rescue Commander. Task Reward: 10,000 funds. Commander, deploy soldiers. Conduct rescue operation. The system prompts. Wang Yao looked at the situation on the map. This building is located in the center of the Science and Technology Park, with only 5 armed personnel in the guard room on the first floor, and the rest being ordinary security guards without firearms. The entire Science and Technology Park has more than 30 armed personnel, while the entire Menghai town only has over 300 armed personnel. After all, this place is also considered the core area of southern Shan State, and most of their armed personnel are deployed on the front lines of the border and the confrontation between the Burmese government army and other forces. Wang Yao chose the toilet on the first floor and deployed 3 soldiers first. After all, the interior of this narrow building is inconvenient for many soldiers to move around. On the first floor of the toilet, the walls suddenly opened up like ripples on the water. Then, 3 fully armed Red Alert soldiers walked out of the ripples and immediately launched a warning upon landing. The Red Alert soldier in charge of commanding this operation leaned on the door and listened for a while, then pulled out a pistol from his waist and carefully opened a crack in the door. There is a Wa State Army soldier wearing a green training uniform smoking in front of the window in the corridor outside. The Red Alert soldier put his pistol back to his waist, pulled out a tactical dagger with his left hand, and approached lightly, while the other 2 Red Alert soldiers also walked out holding rifles, guarding both sides of the corridor. After quietly approaching, before the soldier could react, the Red Alert soldier quickly reached out to cover his mouth and slashed his neck with a knife. The soldier struggled for a moment, then fell silent and fell limply. The Red Alert soldier immediately supported the soldier's body to avoid making any noise. Blood gushed out, staining the ground red. After dealing with one soldier, the Red Alert soldier changed into a rifle and gestured to the other 2 soldiers, alternating cover and starting to search for the security room. In the security room, 4 Wa State Army soldiers wearing green training uniforms were sitting around a table playing cards, with cigarettes in their mouths and beer and some food on the table. Several rifles were lined up against the wall. They played cards and laughed and discussed several beautiful women in this group of piglets, and after they were sent to the socialite group, they must go and taste them. This is Menghai, the hinterland of the southern military region of the Wa State Army, and their task is to guard a group of piglets. Nothing has happened in so many years. Occasionally, a few piglets have escaped from prison, and it is difficult to escape from the park composed of high walls, barbed wire, and gullies. The piglets who tried to escape either became feed in the forest or became blood bags for the health team. For example, the four-eyed guy today. Just as these soldiers were playing cards, the door creaked and opened a crack. The soldier playing cards followed the sound and thought it was the soldier who had just gone out to smoke who had returned. But it turned out that something was thrown in. Bang! Buzzing, before a few people could see clearly, a dazzling white light flashed past, blinding everyone's dog eyes. Accompanied by a huge noise, everyone inside the room felt dizzy and groaning, their bodies swaying uncontrollably. After the white light flashed, the room returned to normal light, and the door was suddenly kicked open. A red alert soldier holding an M4A1 rifle stood at the door and fired a bullet at the room. The four Wa State Army soldiers who were blinded were immediately killed by the guns of the red alert soldiers. After the gunfire, two other red alert soldiers also burst into the house with rifles in hand, starting to check the results of the battle and replenish the guns for those who were not killed. After the two red alert soldiers confirmed that all members of the house had been killed, the red alert soldiers who commanded the operation made a gesture to alert the two soldiers, then turned on their earphones and said, "Report to the commander that the hostile armed personnel on the first floor have been cleared. Please request support." Image. Red Alert Infantry. Chapter 3. Task Rewards. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Task Rewards. Wang Yao also saw the action process of the red alert soldiers through the system. When the enemy on the first floor was cleared, Wang Yao immediately deployed additional personnel. One fully armed red alert soldier after another emerged from the ripples transmitted through time and space, and quickly dispersed under the command of the squad leader. A squad of soldiers begins to clean up other security personnel on this floor. A squad of soldiers quickly occupies the exits on the first floor and begins to deploy defense on the first floor. A squad of soldiers deploys sniper positions on the rooftop and releases drones to begin reconnaissance of the surrounding area. The gunshots just now must have attracted other Wa State Army soldiers stationed in the park. Wang Yao can clearly see through the map provided by the red alert system that more than 30 Wa State armed personnel in the park have been alarmed by the gunshots and are on their way over. Put down your weapon. Don't move. Raise your hands. Bang bang bang, familiar Chinese sounds in the corridor where the piglets are being held, accompanied by occasional crisp gunshots. The young men and women around Wang Yao stopped crying and stared quietly at the door, panting as if hoping for something. A series of gunshots from the battle just now came through, and even in the small room, they could hear clearly, but they didn't know what was happening outside. This is the hinterland of the southern Wa State military region, and the sound of gunfire that can be heard here is either the execution of some disobedient or useless piglets, or the fact that this place is trapped in a battlefield. Regardless of which, it is terrifying for these piglets. Soon, the sound of the key opening the door rang outside. I saw the strong man who had been viciously beating them in front of them before, but at this moment, several soldiers in camouflage uniforms were holding rifles against their heads and trembling as they opened the door. When these soldiers walked in, the people inside realized that their weapons and equipment were much better than those of the Wa State Army soldiers just now, and they were clearly elite. But I don't know if the other party is an enemy or a friend, and no one dares to step forward. Even under the gaze of these elite soldiers, the atmosphere dare not take a breath. At this moment, a man leaning against the wall stood up and walked forward. Everyone looked around and was shocked to see the man's face. A person with a good relationship with Wang Yao in the company whispered, "Wang Yao. Don't go. Wang Yao turned around a bit unexpectedly and looked at the young man who had just spoken, smiling. At this moment, two soldiers walked towards Wang Yao. Everyone held their breath, and some girls even couldn't help but close their eyes when they thought about the fate of the man with glasses just now. Brush, but I saw two soldiers standing at attention, paying homage to Wang Yao. Amidst the shocked gaze of the crowd, one soldier put on a tactical bulletproof vest for Wang Yao, while the other soldier reported the situation to Wang Yao. Report to the commander, the enemy forces in this building have been cleared, and the enemy forces in the park are approaching us. We will soon engage in battle. As soon as the red alert soldiers finished speaking, gunshots could be heard outside. Wang Yao put on his tactical helmet and glanced at the map on the red alert system. The Wa state armed personnel in the park are attacking this building, but they did not expect that unknown enemies were already prepared. They not only deployed defense on the outskirts of the first floor, but also snipers on the roof, and even individual drones for aerial reconnaissance. Just a group of Wa state army soldiers at the militia level, not a match for the red police soldiers at all. As soon as the battle broke out, the red alert sniper on the rooftop killed the leader of this group of Wa state army soldiers, and then the dense firepower of the red alert soldiers directly crushed the Wa state army soldiers. After a brief exchange of fire, 7 or 8 people were killed or injured, and the remaining 20 or so Wa state army soldiers fled to the outside of the park. And the park area has been marked in red on the map, showing Wang Yao's occupied area. The top priority is to annihilate the Wa state army stationed in Menghai town and occupy this small town before they react. And the red alarm system also timely popped up new tasks. Rescue Commander mission completed. Reward distribution. Congratulations to the commander for obtaining 10,000 funds. New task triggered. Defeat the garrison in Menghai town and occupy Menghai town. Reward. 1 combat infantry battalion and 1 technology mine. Wang Yao. At this moment, a shout came from behind. Wang Yao turned his head and looked into the clear and foolish eyes of his former colleagues who were still in shock. He said, "Stay here and don't run around. I'll send you home when the war is over." These people are mostly recent college graduates who, like Wang Yao's predecessor, were recruited by an overseas company. They thought they had met a clear owner, but in the end, dozens of people in the entire company were scammed into the Golden Triangle. Go home. The magic of these 2 words startled everyone who was anxious and looked at Wang Yao with anticipation. Although they didn't know why this young man, who was also deceived from the Dragon Kingdom like them, was respected by this group of soldiers, they couldn't think much of it. The person in front of them was already their only hope. Wang Yao was about to leave when he happened to see a strong man hiding in a corner trying to hide himself. Seeing Wang Yao's gaze coming over, the strong man was so frightened that he immediately knelt on the ground and begged for mercy in Chinese, "Big brother, don't kill me. Big brother, I was also forced." Wang Yao looked at him coldly and asked for a pistol from the red alert soldier beside him. "Big brother. Please. Big brother." The strong man was already full of tears and kept begging for mercy. Bang! A gunshot echoed through this small room, and under the impact of bullets, the strong man fell backwards, with blood splattering out from behind his head and splattering all over the wall. "Ah!" A girl exclaimed in shock, and the person next to her immediately covered her mouth, looking at Wang Yao with a frightened expression. How could this naive graduate who had just entered society like them become so cold and unfamiliar? Chapter 4. Warfare with Wa State Army. Seeking collection. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Warfare with Wa State Army. Menghai Town, located in the eastern part of Shan State, Myanmar, is a small town under the jurisdiction of Mengsa County, adjacent to the Kingdom of Siam and Laos. This area also has a famous name, the Golden Triangle. The power of warlords and drug traffickers in the Golden Triangle region is complex and intertwined with various local ethnic groups and anti-government guerrilla forces. For example, at this time, Menghai County, where Wang Yao was located, and Mengdong County in the southwest direction were both under the control of the South Hua State. The entire South Hua State-controlled area has a population of 260,000, including 12 villages in 5 towns and 2 counties, Mengdong and Menghai. The central building of the Science and Technology Park has been arranged as a temporary command center, and as soon as Wang Yao entered, he saw several red police officers designated combat plans on a large map that had been pulled up. Commander. As Wang Yao walked in, the Red Alert officers in the command center saluted him one after another. Wang Yao returned a military salute and walked to the map where a Red Alert officer was making a mark. Commander, please take a look. Colonel Chen Lin, the highest-ranking Red police officer, began to introduce himself to Wang Yao. Menghai town is located in the northern part of the valley plain impacted by the Xiaoming River. The South Hua State Army is here, and the military camp across the river has deployed an infantry battalion with more than 300 soldiers. Wang Yao looked at the map and saw a small river flowing out from the depths of the dense forest, rushing into a long valley plain in Menghai town. The small river meandered down and entered the northern part of the kingdom of Siam, Chiang Rai Prefecture, where it washed out a large plain area before merging into the Mekong River. The top priority now is to take over Menghai town, which is enough for the initial development of the base in the valley plain. Wang Yao extended his finger to the military camp across the river from Menghai town. If he wants to stand firm here, the first thing he needs to face is the experienced South Hua State Army in jungle warfare. Among the more than 50 armed forces in Myanmar, the United Hua State Army has the strongest combat and military strength. Although this is only the controlled area of South Hua State, separated by several hundred kilometers from the main controlled area of Hua State, South Hua State is located in the Golden Triangle and its surrounding forces are complex. The South Hua State Army, which can survive and grow in such an environment, also has its own unique characteristics. Kunsha, the famous drug lord in the Golden Triangle at that time, was surrounded by the Burmese government army and other warlord armed forces, including the South Hua State Army, during his peak period with more than 30,000 troops. After Kunsha's death, the Mongol Thai army collapsed and disintegrated, with some over 6,000 Mongol Thai soldiers defecting to the Hua State United Army, many of whom were left behind in the South Hua State military region. The remaining remnants of the Mongol Thai army, led by the fourth son of Kunsha, retreated into the mountains and forests where the forces of the South Hua State Army, the Kaya Army, and the Kingdom of Siam were intertwined to engage in guerrilla warfare, continuing to rely on poppy cultivation and drug trafficking for a living. According to the intelligence we have collected online, the main force of the South Hua State Army is concentrated in the southern region. In addition to confronting the Shan State Army and Kaya Army on the Nujiang River, they have also been harassed by remnants of the Mongolian Thai Army through guerrilla attacks. The South Hua State Army has relatively few troops in the northern Mengsa County, Chen Lin said of his suggestion. Take the initiative. Take advantage of the enemy's lack of reaction and block them in the military camp. Wang Yao lowered his troops. Although he only had over 100 soldiers, he still had a tank platoon equipped with 3 grizzly bear tanks, while the more than 300 soldiers stationed in the South Hua State garrison in Menghai town only had light weapons, with a maximum of a few armed pickup trucks. Therefore, based on the principle of military value and speed, Wang Yao ordered Chen Lin to command his troops to launch an active attack on the South Hua State Army stationed on the opposite bank of the river. With the order issued, the Red Alert soldiers quickly took action. The military preset template of the system is based on the Eagle Sauce Army, with 3 soldiers forming a combat group. 3 combat groups plus 1 firepower group form a 12-person infantry squad, equipped with 10 automatic rifles, 1 M249 light machine gun, 1 M24 sniper rifle, and 1 grenade launcher. The 120 soldiers in Wang Yao's hands were divided into 10 infantry squads to facilitate this small-scale operation. The gate of the newly occupied Science and Technology Park was demolished, and a 20-ton grizzly bear tank roared out of the park. The Allied Grizzly tank is the cheapest tank unit in the Red Alert series of games, but even so, it is not something that ordinary infantry can fight against. Grizzly tank, weighing 20 tons, equipped with a 105mm rifled gun, a 7.62mm parallel machine gun, a 12.7mm anti-aircraft machine gun, a 40mm grenade launcher, with a maximum speed of 70 km per hour and a maximum range of 483 km. With the support of the floating shelter, it can travel on the water surface and is a versatile light tank suitable for combat in complex environments such as mountains and forests. Each Grizzly tank has a Red Alert soldier from an infantry squad working together to avoid being ambushed by the enemy. So today, the civilians in Menghai town saw troops they had never seen before enter the town. Civilians who have been under the rule of the South Wa State Army for decades looked at this unit in front of them, which was completely different from the South Wa State Army. They were surprised and hid in their houses, carefully watching the unit pass by from the town. In the sky, the drones operated by the Red Alert soldiers have begun reconnaissance of the South Wa State Army camp across the river. It seems that the Wa State Army soldiers who had previously escaped from the technology park returned to the military camp and brought back news of being attacked by the enemy. The gate of the military camp opened, and 3 armed pickup trucks drove out of the camp. Subsequently, more than 300 South Wa State Army soldiers carrying rifles followed on foot behind these armed pickup trucks. Wang Yao found through the footage transmitted by the drone that the other party seemed to have not dispatched reconnaissance troops. Perhaps he was in the hinterland and didn't expect to be attacked. Chen Lin also noticed this and immediately ordered his troops to prepare for the battle. When the South Wa Army crossed the Xiaoming River and walked around a small hill along the road, they saw Menghai town, and 3 grizzly bear tanks also appeared in their sight. Retreat! Retreat! The commander of the South Wa State Army, sitting in an armed pickup truck, broke out in cold sweat when he saw the grizzly tank and immediately shouted. But it's not his subordinates who answered him. Boom! 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 3 tanks lay in a triangular ambush here, and when the armed pickup trucks of the South Wa State Army appeared on the road, 3 105mm rifled guns roared. In one incident, the only 3 armed pickup trucks of the South Wa State Army were bombed, including the commander of the unit, all of whom died in flames. However, the South Wa State Army has rich experience in jungle combat. After being attacked, they quickly dispersed to both sides of the road, seeking cover, and began to counterattack under the command of grassroots officers. However, their enemy is not other ethnic armed forces or the Burmese government army, but the elite Red Police Corps. A grizzly bear tank, under the coordinated cover of an infantry squad, began to encircle and, with reconnaissance intelligence from drones, occupied the entrance of a bridge on the Xiaoming River, cutting off the enemy's retreat. Some soldiers of the South Wa State Army wanted to break through, but were clearly seen by drones in the air. The Red Police Corps cooperated closely, and the soldiers of the South Wa State Army who broke through were fiercely attacked. The breakout failed, coupled with the annihilation of the officer group, and the morale of the South Wa State soldiers began to collapse. 2 grizzly tanks, in collaboration with the Red Alert infantry, began to enter the field, cutting through the battlefield and launching their final attack on the enemy. The Red Alert infantry followed closely behind, forming groups of 3 and starting to enter the field for harvesting. P.S. Seeking collection. Seeking support. Chapter 5. Red Alert Base Vehicles. Expand. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Red Alert Base Vehicles. Expand. Half an hour later, the grizzly bear tank swaggered into the South Wa Army camp. The flag of the South Wa State Army was withdrawn. The soldiers of the South Wa State Army, who had previously carried rifles and followed the officer's armed pickup truck, also returned dejected. However, this time many of them were injured, their weapons were gone, and their bodies were dirty. A sense of defeat filled everyone. Report to the commander, the battle statistics have been compiled. Chen Lin happily approached Wang Yao with a report. This small-scale encounter ended quickly, and the battle statistics came out quickly. According to the statistics of frontline officers, more than 300 enemy soldiers were annihilated, of which 67 were killed, and the remaining 200 or so became prisoners of war. Upon seeing the map of the Red Alert system showing that his control area had expanded from the Science and Technology Park to a radius of 20 kilometers around Menghai town, Wang Yao exhaled a breath of turbid air. Subsequently, Wang Yao began to search for suitable locations on the map for the deployment of Red Alert base vehicles. This washed-out river valley plain is filled with farmland, and there are also 3 or 4 villages. The original South Wa Army barracks were chosen as the most suitable base for the Red Police base. So Wang Yao ordered the Red Police soldiers to take the prisoners out of the military camp and found a place in the middle of the plain to build a new camp to guard the prisoners. Half an hour later, Wang Yao arrived at the military camp in a vehicle confiscated from the Science and Technology Park, escorted by a group of Red Police soldiers. A large area of open space has been cleared by the Red Police soldiers here, and the surroundings are also patrolled by Red Police soldiers. Arriving at the open ground, Wang Yao began to call up the Red Alert system and deploy the Red Alert base vehicles. I saw the air suddenly ripple like water, and a huge black metal vehicle reflecting sunlight slowly drove out of the ripples of time and space, finally landing on the open ground. The massive Red Alert base vehicle occupied half of the open space of the military camp and began to unfold under the command of Wang Yao. The steel and metal began to rotate, and a huge mechanical sound hummed. Although I have seen it countless times in the game, it is still the first time I have seen the movement of such a huge object in real life. 10 minutes later, the Red Alert base vehicle was deployed, and due to Wang Yao's choice of black as the main color scheme of the camp, the entire Red Alert base's color scheme was mainly black and silver-white, which looked very impressive. Walking into the Red Alert base, everything here looks so out of place with this poor mountain valley. Arriving at the command center, a huge screen projected maps around the Red Alert base, and the spy screening system inherent in the base also began to operate. Wang Yao can see every move in his controlled area from here. Congratulations to the commander for defeating the defenders of Menghai town and completing the mission of occupying Menghai town, reward. Combat Infantry Battalion X1, reward. Technology Mine X1, watching the Red Alert system prompt, Wang Yao clicked on the system reward, deployed the combat infantry camp at the Red Alert base, and then opened the technology mine to check. Technology Mine. After the mine is deployed, it will automatically extract mineral resources hidden in the veins, forming a vein. Damn it, is this thing so amazing? Wang Yao sighed as he looked at the instructions for the technology mine and the operation diagram on the screen. This thing is completely different from traditional mines and belongs to the unique black technology of the Red Alert system. It can absorb mineral resources in its veins anywhere deployed, and ultimately form a vein below the mine, which is then collected through mining machines or technology mining vehicles. That is to say, with this thing, Wang Yao can generate a large mine vein within his control area. There is no need to worry about the financial issues caused by mineral mining. No wonder those mines in the game can continuously produce resources. After reading Build a Power Plant First, Wang Yao started clicking on Build. Just like in the game, buildings such as barracks, tank factories, and/or refineries were arranged, and then the technology mine was placed in a farm behind the Red Alert base. The building area was then planned, and you just had to wait. Is this the weapon of the Wa army? Wang Yao picked up a rifle and looked at the captured weapons in a row of tents. This is an old BA.63 combat rifle, prototype of the G3 automatic rifle produced by Germany. In addition, there are also infantry light weapons such as the BA.64 light machine gun based on G3A3 and the BA.72 carbine gun based on G3K. Myanmar obtained production technology through procurement and authorization, naming it the BA Gun Clan. It was once heavily equipped in the Myanmar army and later retired from active service in the 1990s. However, it is still widely used in local militia, warlord armed groups, and guerrilla forces. The warlord armed forces and guerrilla forces relied on these outdated equipment to divide the country, causing headaches for the Burmese government for decades. On the open ground, red police buildings rose up one after another, overturning and replacing the original ones. The entire military camp became a large construction site, and I believe it will soon become a brand new base community. During the construction of the Red Police base, Wang Yao did not have any leisure time. He looked in the direction of Menghai town and asked Chen Lin to bring a platoon of Red Police infantry guards, preparing to enter Menghai town and have a good conversation with the civil affairs officers and residents of Menghai town. In the future, this will be my own territory. Chapter 6. Chinese Culture in the Golden Triangle. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Chinese Culture in the Golden Triangle. On the top floor of a 3-story restaurant in Menghai town, Su Chan, who was in his 50s, looked solemnly at the direction of the Wa State Army headquarters in the distance, emitting smoke and occasional gunfire. Mayor, there has been no news from Major Yanlong's side so far. A middle-aged man ran upstairs, still holding a mobile phone in his hand, anxiously asked, "Those strange troops have left over a dozen people controlling the government office building. It seems they are looking for you." Upon hearing this, Su Chan's face became even more solemn. He lit a cigarette and looked down at the restaurant. At this moment, the first and second floors of this relatively small restaurant were adorned with red lanterns, the ground was covered with red carpets, the windows were adorned with large double happiness letters, and several welcome cars were hung with ribbons and fireworks, parked on both sides. The first floor had already gathered many wedding attendees, surrounded by a pair of newlyweds sitting together. On the originally festive day, everyone's faces were somewhat worried. The population of Menghai town is not large, only about 20,000 people, while there are only 5,000 people living in the town. Other civilians are distributed in villages on the Xiaomeng River plain or in earthen villages in the mountains and forests. Today, due to Mayor Su Chan's marriage to his daughter, influential elders from surrounding villages and officials from various villages came to congratulate him, but unexpectedly encountered a strange army attacking the Wa State Army. Strangely enough, it's because these locals, who have been here for decades, have never seen such well-equipped and well-trained troops, and whether it's equipment or flags, they don't seem like troops from the Burmese government or other neighboring forces. Although it was only driven through the main street of the town, it left a deep impression on everyone. Compared to this army, the Wa State Army, known as the nose-sharp Burmese government army, is like a militia. This strange army is clearly looking for him as the town mayor to control this place, but Su Chan is a local who is familiar with the Wa State Army that has occupied this place for decades. Whether it is the interests of the family or the network of relationships, they are more inclined towards the Wa State Army. But at this time, he had no confidence in the Wa Army and was worried that if he did not cooperate, the family would lose its position in Menghai. At this moment, a commotion came from outside. Su Chan frowned and looked over, only to see a young man who was waiting at the door running up in fear, panting and saying, "Mayor Su. They're here." As Su Chan's pupils contracted, everyone in the room's hearts lifted. Subsequently, Su Chan waved his hand to them, gesturing for everyone to calm down, while he stood up and walked out. "Oh, are we having a wedding here?" Wang Yao was a little surprised when he got off the car and saw the colorful decorations and congratulatory signs posted everywhere at the entrance of the small restaurant. Teams of Red Alert soldiers, fully armed, surrounded this small restaurant, and the guests attending the wedding around looked at these soldiers, not daring to take a breath. "Are you sure the person is inside?" Wang Yao looked at Chen Lin beside him. "Yes, today is the day when Mayor Su Chan marries his daughter, and most of the people in the surrounding villages have also come." Chen Lin looked at the intelligence reported by his subordinates and said, "If it weren't for us, maybe the Wa State Army lieutenant colonel named Yan Long would also come here later. Wang Yao remembered that the person named Yan Long seemed to be the commander of the Wa State Army stationed in Menghai Town, who was sent up to the sky by the 105 tank gun of the Grizzly tank during the first round of combat. Wang Yao slowly walked in with his subordinates. There was a table at the door, and the elderly person responsible for registering guests stood up nervously. The table was also filled with cigarettes and fruits. Wang Yao looked and saw that the guest registration list was all written in Chinese characters, with gifts including Burmese coins, local currencies, as well as US dollars and dragon dollars. The cigarettes next to them were all Yushi cigarettes priced at 20 yuan per pack. Next to it, there are flower baskets given by the guests, mostly written in Chinese characters. Congratulations to the new couple. The more I looked at it, the more I felt like it was no different from the wedding in my hometown. Wang Yaoshan said, "Are they all Chinese?" The registered elderly person thought he was asking him, and was a bit surprised by the other person's proficiency in Chinese. He said, "There are also some guests from the Burmese and Wa ethnic groups." Wang Yao curiously picked up the registration list on the table and looked at it. He saw rows of Chinese names on top, occasionally featuring a 4-character name. Those who didn't know thought it was a wedding in a small town in the southern part of the Dragon Kingdom. The degree of sinicization is too high. Wang Yao bumped Chen Lin with his arm and asked, "Do you have any money with you?" Chen Lin. Longwa, or in other words, there are some traditions in the cultural circle of China, such as not doing anything wrong with white and red affairs. Even if someone has a grudge, they usually avoid trivial matters. If they cause trouble during these two events, it is not an insurmountable grudge, but a deadly grudge, a hatred that has lasted for generations. Wang Yao and the Su family have no grudges, and coming here is not to cause trouble. According to Chinese tradition, it is natural to prepare some congratulatory gifts. So when Su Chan came out of the house, he saw a young man wearing a tactical vest, escorted by many soldiers, holding a registration list and watching if there was anything to do. "I'm Su Chan, the mayor of Menghai Town." Su Chan walked up and arched his hand, "May I ask how this general is called?" Wang Yao put down the registration list in his hand and said with a smile, "My name is Wang Yao, and I am the commander of this unit." Su Chan solemnly bowed to Wang Yao again, then looked at him carefully and asked, "Is General Han?" At this moment, a car stopped at the door, and a red alert soldier got off the car with a suitcase. That is the currency that Wang Yao ordered to retrieve from the park. "Mayor Su, I had something to ask you about, but since the Su family is having a wedding, I, as an uninvited person, must prepare some congratulatory gifts." As Wang Yao spoke, he took out 200,000 Burmese coins from his suitcase, worth approximately 600 dragon yuan, and placed them on the table. "This is my deputy Chen Lin, and even this gift belongs to us." Then he handed the registration list in his hand to the elderly person in charge of registration. The old man trembled as he took over the list and asked for the details of their names, which he wrote on it. After communicating with the elderly, Wang Yao learned that the cost of local weddings is usually around 1 or 200 dragon yuan. Su Chan's admiration for Wang Yao's natural gestures and fluent authentic Chinese increased significantly. As the dominant side, Wang Yao gave the Su family face. As the owner, Su Chan dared not offend him and immediately invited Wang Yao and others to enter. Chen Lin gave a command to the soldiers under his command, and then several soldiers walked towards the restaurant first. Su Chan dared not move around and was worthy of accompanying a smile as he followed Wang Yao's side, demonstrating his personal safety to the other party. Entering the room, the guests who were just discussing stopped and looked at Wang Yao and others curiously and nervously. "General, let's go to the backyard to chat," Su Chan made a gesture of invitation. Wang Yao looked around for a week and found that most of them were Chinese. He nodded with a smile and walked towards the backyard. "General is a dragon man." Su Chan asked curiously as several people sat down at a round table under the grape trellis in the backyard. Even with a hint of anticipation in my heart, if it were the country to the north, it could be explained very clearly. Wang Yao nodded and poured a bucket of cold water on Su Chan's hopeful heart when he first spoke. However, I don't have much to do with the Dragon Kingdom anymore. Su Chan's eyes turned and he thought of another possibility in his heart. I want to ask Mayor Su about the situation here. Wang Yao interrupted Su Chan's imagination and asked, when I came here, I saw many Chinese character signs on the street and also saw your wedding. Is the degree of sinicization here very high? Su Chan lit a cigarette, took a sip, and slowly said, the people here in the Golden Triangle, not to mention 8 out of 10, about 2 or 3 out of 10 people can speak Chinese. The northern and eastern parts of Myanmar may stand halfway, but the general knows Kuncha, right? You know, the former world's largest drug lord, said Wang Yao. Su Chan nodded and said, General knows that Kuncha's original name was Zhang Qifu, with ancestral roots in Yunnan province. His father was a chieftain of the Limo tribe, and his father-in-law was a senior general of the 26th Army of the remnants of the Ga Army. He had studied at a military academy established by the Ga Army. Nowadays, most of the warlords in the Golden Triangle region, especially in eastern Myanmar, are either his classmates or his younger brothers. No wonder he was able to thrive in the Golden Triangle. Wang Yao was slightly surprised. He only knew that Kuncha was quite influential when he was stationed in the Golden Triangle. During his heyday, he had over 30,000 Mongolian and Thai soldiers under his command, and even wanted to establish an independent country. Although Kuncha brought drugs and chaos to the Golden Triangle region, he had a high degree of sinicization. When he ruled this area, he basically ruled with Chinese culture. At that time, the mainstream language of the people here was Chinese, and the characters were also Chinese characters. Schools mainly taught Chinese, and the Han people from the north and the local Chinese had a high status. Not only could they enter the business world, but they could also serve as officials under him. This was also one of the reasons why other warlords fell to the ground when he was heavily attacked by the Burmese army. Chapter 7. I want to make Chinese people first class. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. I want to make Chinese people first class. When Wang Yao attended the wedding. On a river 20 kilometers away from Menghai, Li Sha was riding a makeshift bamboo raft with several subordinates and soldiers down the river. After an hour of turbulence, we finally arrived at a small village. The residents here became somewhat worried when they saw Li Sha and others with their weapons. Fortunately, Li Sha only wanted to quickly run to the urban area of Mengsa County without stopping too much. He extorted some food from the village head's house and grabbed 2 mules before leaving the village. Damn it, where exactly did that group of people come from? Li Sha, dressed in a suit and leather shoes, rode on a mule, muttering incessantly. He was originally dealing with the young man with 4 eyes who often scolded him in the company, but suddenly gunshots rang out in the park. Before long, a few soldiers ran over in panic, saying that they had been attacked by elite troops and had lost many lives, including the platoon leader and deputy platoon leader. Just as he was about to take these soldiers to the Wa State Army base to find Major Yanlong, a few soldiers ran over and said they saw hundreds of fully armed soldiers driving through the streets of Menghai town, as well as several tanks. After a while, various gunshots rang out in the direction of Xiaoming River. Li Sha guessed that the group of people had arrived well prepared, and most of the troops of Yanlong could not defeat them. So she hastily threw the 4-eyed cubs into the dug pit and buried them, and then decisively ran away with these few people. Sha Gu, we can't get in touch with the park anymore, and there are also quite a few contacts from the military camp. One of the subordinates made several phone calls with his phone and said in a somewhat frightened tone. It seems that Wei Gang and Yen Long are gone. We need to run quickly. Retreat to Mengsa County, you all listen. When we reach Mengsa County, it said that Menghai town has been attacked by thousands of unidentified armed forces, and they have several tanks and armored vehicles. We have been dispersed, and Major Yan Long's troops are also in good or bad luck. Li Sha said to his subordinates. I can't just say that I ran away without seeing anyone. At least I heard gunshots and gunfire, and the number of people was not deliberately exaggerated. If I could eat the more than 300 people from Yanlong, it seems a bit low to report thousands of people. Why not report 3,000 people? On the other hand, through Su Chan, a local who has lived in Menghai for over 50 years, Wang Yao gained a rough understanding of the Golden Triangle region. Throughout history, the Golden Triangle region has been inhabited by various ethnic groups. Some of them have clan hatred, but there are also many who cooperate. Many ethnic groups migrated from India in the west and China in the north. When the English colonizers colonized and ruled here, in order to better manage it, they recruited and bribed some ethnic groups, suppressed another group, and created a lot of hatred. Later, after the colonizers left, the Ga army retreated in China, and many remnants entered the Golden Triangle, forming the initial warlords by uniting with local ethnic groups. As Myanmar, Laos, and the Kingdom of Siam become increasingly stable, the three powerful countries are clearing up the warlords and tribal armed forces entrenched in the Golden Triangle region. The remnants of the Ga army, which had once occupied the Golden Triangle, suffered heavy losses. Some surrendered to the Three Kingdoms government army and were relocated to other places, while others continued to occupy the jungle and cooperate with local tribes and anti-government guerrillas. For example, in the current controlled area of the South Wa State Army, a large part of it used to be the territory of the Mongol Thai army led by the Golden Triangle drug lord Kuncha. Under the attack of the Burmese government army and other warlords, Kuncha suffered a devastating defeat, and the Mongol Thai army collapsed. The Wa State Army occupied and controlled this area, establishing the South Wa State Special Zone with a military establishment of 171 military districts. Due to their unique cultural attributes, the majority of local Chinese businessmen are Chinese, with a high social status and education level. During the remnants of the former Ga army in the Kuncha era, Chinese people were able to serve as officials. Under such influence, the local people take pride in speaking and writing Chinese characters, and Chinese vendors donate money to build many Chinese language schools, which has greatly improved the popularity of Chinese language and characters in the area. Su Chan even said that when he went to the capital and southern parts of Myanmar, he found that the Chinese there spoke very little Chinese, while the northern and eastern Golden Triangle regions of Myanmar still maintained Chinese characters. When Su Chan tentatively asked Wang Yao which faction he belonged to, Wang Yao smiled and said, "From now on, this is my territory." Su Chan was confused for a moment. "You can wait and see for now. When I take over Mengsa County and Mengdong County and truly become the owner of this place, you can turn to me. Now, all you need to do is help me stabilize the people." Wang Yao propped his cheek with one hand and said, "I know you are planting poppies, and you are also engaged in telecommunications fraud, gambling, pornography, and even organ and plasma black markets. From now on, all of these are prohibited. I will sweep away these bloody and dirty things. If you want to ask me why." Wang Yao opened his hands. Brush, Chen Lin stood up beside him, stood at attention, looked up and straightened his chest, placing his right hand on the position of the left chest heart. "Step on it. Step on it." The surrounding red alert soldiers also stood at attention, with steel guns on their shoulders, making the same move, and their scorching eyes fixed on Wang Yao, their supreme commander. "This is my confidence." Wang Yao looked at Su Chan, who was already stunned in front of him with satisfaction, and said, "And such an elite army. I have hundreds of thousands. They are constantly coming. They are helping me achieve hegemony. Now, I am inviting you to join my dominance." Wang Yao extended his hand to him. "Not just the Golden Triangle. I want hundreds of millions of people on the Southeast Peninsula to speak Chinese. Write Chinese characters. I want Chinese people to become first class. I want to lay an empire that belongs to me. It belongs to Chinese people. Chapter 8. The first step to becoming a warlord. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. The first step to becoming a warlord. In the evening, Wang Yao did not stay to eat and left because he received important military information. As they watched Wang Yao leave with his soldiers, Su Chan and the tribal leaders of Menghai town were lost in thought. They have lived in the local area for decades, and it's not something that Wang Yao can convince them with just a few words, but the future promised by Wang Yao is indeed quite attractive. Since the failure of the remnants of the Ga army and the Mongol Thai army in Kuncha, there have been fewer and fewer people speaking and writing Chinese characters on this land. Chinese people like them are increasingly being excluded, and many of their Chinese language schools are being ordered to shut down. Chinese people are even not allowed to hold official positions and can only work in agriculture, small businesses, and ordinary soldiers. Mayor Su, I heard that the entire territory of Guogan has been occupied. For a long time, an old man suddenly mentioned the Guogan tribe in northern Myanmar, which is hundreds of miles away. Su Chan, holding a cigarette in his mouth, nodded dully and said, "A few years ago, the Burmese military launched a coup. As we all know, in order to stabilize the rule of the military government, the military began to attack the tribal armed forces. The first ones to suffer were the Kogan tribe. The Guogan tribe is said to be relatives of the Ming army who followed Emperor Yongle of the Ming dynasty to Burma 400 years ago. After Emperor Yongle was executed by Wu Sangui, they have been steadfast in Guogan. Now, after the Burmese government army occupied Kokang, they have implemented military control over the area, cancelled all Chinese language schools, switched to teaching Burmese language, and prohibited the local Kokang people from celebrating Han Festival. Only Burmese festivals can be celebrated. The Guogan tribe naturally refused, and the remnants were still active in the mountains and forests fighting jungle guerrillas with the Burmese government army. If we don't make any changes, sooner or later, the Burmese government army will also take action against us." Su Chan turned around and looked at the big red she character on the window, saying, "By then, we won't even be able to stick this she character. Wait a little longer, if he can stop the Wa State Army's counterattack. We Chinese may not necessarily have a kingdom that belongs to them." Within the Red Alert base. When Wang Yao drove over, it was already dark, and the buildings inside the base were so dazzling in the darkness. A circle of steel walls has been built around the entire Red Alert base, with 12 machine gun bunkers deployed in all directions. A patrol team composed of Red Alert infantry leads military dogs to patrol the perimeter of the base. Entering the base, a towering barracks rose from the ground, and a fully armed Red Police infantry soldier walked out of the barracks. The tank factory roared as a multifunctional infantry tank drove out. "Report to Commander, the first phase of construction task is completed." Wang Yao walked into the command center of the Red Police base, and the system prompted for the daytime construction task. Wang Yao looked at the 2 barracks, 3 power plants, a tank factory, 2 ore refineries, and a technology mine on the system, and with the addition of the technical units in the production sequence, his 10,000 yuan capital was almost at its bottom. Fortunately, the technology mine has started working, and the 2 ore refining plants are equipped with super-time mining vehicles that are mining ore, which can provide a considerable amount of funding on a daily basis. New task triggered the first step to becoming a warlord. Defeat the South Wa State Army and occupy Mengsa County and Mengdong County, task reward. Copy Center X1. Copy Center, limited to 1 seat. When producing infantry units in the barracks, 1 infantry of the same type can be produced for free. Surprisingly, it's a replication center. Wang Yao was slightly surprised. This thing is a limited unit, and can only build 1. It costs 1 cent to produce 2 Red Alert infantry, and it won't be occupied by mind control or engineers. Subsequently, looking at the triggered new mission, Wang Yao instructed a staff member to open the map of the Golden Triangle and carefully examine it. At this time, Chen Lin also took an electronic tablet from the Red police officer interrogating the prisoners and reported, "Commander, based on the intelligence we have obtained from the locals and the South Wa state officers and soldiers of the prisoners, it can be determined that there are two infantry divisions under the South Wa state military region, namely the 420th Division and the 525th Division, with a force of about 20,000 people. In addition, there are about 10,000 militia armed forces, and the total force should be around 30,000. Their military district commander is Wei Tianzi, the chief of staff is Yan Yoxin, and the military training director is Li Wenbin. The 420th Division is stationed in Mengdong County, while the 525th Division is stationed in Mengsha County. However, Mengsha County only has one infantry brigade and a civilian corps of about 3,300 soldiers, with the majority of the remaining troops concentrated in Mengdong County. In terms of weapons and equipment, light weapons are the main focus, with a large number of BA series and AK series rifles, machine guns, and an unknown number of armored pickup trucks and armored vehicles seized from the Burmese army. There are no tanks or air forces. The organization of the Wa State Army is relatively simple, and there are not as many technical and auxiliary branches. One infantry battalion has about 300 people, one infantry regiment has about 900 people, one infantry brigade has less than 3,000 people, and one infantry division has less than 9,000 people. But it should be noted that the entire South Wa State Army controlled area has only 260,000 people, but it has raised 30,000 armed forces, which can be said that the entire people are soldiers. This situation is very common in the armed forces of warlords, with almost every household having soldiers. Every household is related to warlords and tribal armed forces, and it is no wonder that the Burmese government army has been fighting for so many years against these separatist warlords and tribal armed forces. Chapter 9. Take the initiative. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Take the initiative. How many troops can we mobilize in our hands? Wang Yao asked. Chen Lin calculated and said, "Commander, our army currently has 512 troops, and the barracks are producing at a speed of 120 people in 24 hours. The initial reward was a 120-person infantry company and tank platoon, and after solving the occupation of Menghai Town by the station troops in Menghai Town, a 360-person infantry battalion was rewarded for completing the task. Now, Wang Yao's army is over 500 people. Soldiers are of great value and speed. It is best for us to take the initiative to capture Mengsha County before the enemy in Mengsha County receives news of the fall of Menghai Town." Wang Yao's finger crossed the map and pointed to Mengsha County, which is 60 kilometers away from Menghai Town. Menghai Town and Mengsha County are separated by 60 kilometers, but the middle is mostly a primitive jungle, with only a winding small river running through it along a narrow path. If it is a normal military march, it will take at least 2 to 3 days. But for the Red Alert infantry, this distance can complete a rapid march in just 1 day. There is a road connecting Mengsha County and Mengdong County, and it is only about 40 kilometers away. If we attack Mengsha County, the main force of the South Wa State Army stationed in Mengdong County will provide support within 2 days, and the vanguard troops will even rush to the edge of the battlefield on the first day. Chen Lin placed a soldier's chest in the position of Mengdong County. Then he said in a solemn voice, "If we can eliminate the enemy forces in Mengsha County within a day, we can completely ambush the main force supported by Mengdong County on this road." Wang Yao looked at this road and found that it meandered through the mountainous area, and many places were suitable for ambushes. Infantry can quickly march to Mengsha County within a day, but I am worried that if we attack, we will need grizzly bear tanks and infantry tanks, and the small road from Menghai to Mengsha will be difficult to transport vehicles. Wang Yao frowned. The South Wa State Army has been operating in Mengsha County and Mengdong County for decades, and there must be many defensive works, even a civilian airport in Mengsha County. Wang Yao is not lacking in heavy weapons for siege. After the construction of the tank factory, various calibers of artillery, tanks, and armored vehicles can be produced. However, the problem is how to transport these siege weapons to Mengsa County in a short time. Commander, the multifunctional infantry tank can try taking small paths. In terms of heavy firepower, the Nightingale helicopter can lift the M777 light howitzer, suggested Chen Lin. The basic multi-functional infantry tank in the Red Alert system is only 12 tons and can carry 9 fully armed infantry. Of course, modifications can also be made, such as replacing machine guns with tank turrets to become infantry support vehicles that can provide heavy firepower support. Additional anti-aircraft firepower can also be installed to form anti-aircraft vehicles. The prototype of the Nightingale helicopter is the CH.47 Xinyugan heavy transport aircraft of Eagle Country, which can carry 33 fully armed soldiers or hang 6 tons of supplies on the belly of the aircraft. 6 tons is far from enough for tanks and infantry vehicles, but it is already sufficient for light artillery. The M777 light howitzer has a caliber of 155 mm, a total weight of 3.4 tons, an effective range of 24 km, and a maximum range of 40 km using an extended range projectile. It can be transported by C.17, C.5 fixed-wing aircraft, CH.53E, CH.47 and other helicopters. In that case, we need to deploy the structure of the troops well. Wang Yao rubbed his chin. The infantry battalions rewarded by the Red Alert system are all basic infantry battalions. In order to better engage in jungle operations, Wang Yao believes it is necessary to carry out lightweight restructuring. After restructuring and editing, the troops under Wang Yao mainly consisted of companies and platoons as the main combat sequences. 3 soldiers form a combat team, with 3 combat teams and 1 firepower support team forming a 12-person infantry squad equipped with 10 automatic rifles, 1 M249 light machine gun, 1 M24 sniper rifle, and 1 grenade launcher. 3 infantry squads and 1 support squadron form an infantry platoon, consisting of 2 firepower squads and 1 drone squadron. 1 squadron is equipped with an M240 general-purpose machine gun, while the other squadron is equipped with an 83 mm rocket launcher, with a force of 40.2 people. A infantry platoon has 3 infantry platoons, 1 firepower platoon. The firepower platoon has 1 squad equipped with 3 60 mm light mortars, 1 squad equipped with 3 12.7 mm Browning heavy machine guns, and 1 squad equipped with 2 Javelin anti-tank launchers and 2 83 mm rocket launchers. After restructuring, an infantry company of 160 people was formed, and Wang Yao's troops happened to form 3 infantry companies. Whether in terms of individual weapons and equipment, aerial reconnaissance, or long-range firepower, they far surpass the Wa State United Army, let alone the fighting spirit of the Red Alert soldiers, who can rival the existence of the King of Light Infantry. Under the command of Wang Yao, 2 infantry companies began to take the lead and headed to Mengsa County in the darkness. And there is only 1 infantry platoon left, with 1 platoon serving as a guard for the Red Police Base, Menghai Town, and the prisoners' camp. 1 platoon guards 3 newly produced multifunctional infantry tanks advancing towards Mengsa County. The last platoon is waiting in place for the Nightingale helicopter and M777 ultra-light artillery produced by the tank factory. They will serve as artillery security forces, along with engineers and artillery for subsequent barracks production, and take a Nightingale helicopter to the front line. 3 Grizzly Bear tanks were not idle either. The tanks followed the marching line in the rear, struggling to drive on the muddy dirt road towards Mengsa County. Even if we cannot catch up with tomorrow's battle, we must strive to join the battlefield when the enemy counterattacks in Mengdong County. At that time, it will be a decisive battle that determines the ownership of Mengsa and Mengdong counties. Chapter 10. The response of the Wa State Army, seeking collection. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Wa State Army's response, Colonel Su Qian. Report to the Commander. Please give instructions. Late at night, a brand new colonel officer came to Wang Yao's Red Police base and saluted him. Wang Yao returned a military salute and then looked at the man in front of him. A standard Chinese character face, standing at a height of 1.8 meters, sturdy and powerful, with a military uniform that seemed to be stretched open by muscles at any time. There are many special hero units in the Red Alert system, such as Tanya, who is good at stealth warfare, and Yuri, who is good at mind control. Most of these hero units have limitations, and there are few officers who command large battles in the game, as most players are serving as campaign commanders. But in reality, although Wang Yao had some basic military knowledge alone, he was only limited to the level of military enthusiasts. He only knew a few people and was struggling in battle. It was better to entrust it to a professional team of officers. Therefore, after the barracks were built, he decisively issued orders to produce middle and senior officers. Apart from Chen Lin being the initial accompanying officer, the man in front of me, named Su Qian, is a senior officer. At present, Wang Yao's military rank in the system is only at the rank of colonel, and his officers under him can only be at the rank of colonel at most, and cannot exceed him. The soldiers and officers of these Red Alert systems can grow up like ordinary people. For example, Chen Lin, the first officer under Wang Yao, was initially just a major and could command hundreds of people in battle. However, with the growth of combat experience and later training, he could grow to the rank of general. And Su Qian, not to mention, was set to be 30 years old by the Red Alert system. Even so, it is very rare in the human army and has great potential for growth. Welcome to join, Colonel Su Qian. Wang Yao extended his hand to Su Qian. Later, Wang Yao brought Su Qian to the electronic sand table in the center of the command center. The entire electronic sand table was scanned based on the map provided by the Red Alert system, and a proportional sand table was created for the terrain within a 100-kilometer radius of Menghai town. Chen Lin introduced the situation of each unit and their current strategic plans to Su Qian. After Chen Lin finished his introduction, Su Qian expressed his own opinion. Commander, we can completely leave only one artillery guard platoon to guard the base, and other troops will be sent to the front line one after another. After the subsequent barracks produce new soldiers, this unit and artillery platoon can be sent to the front line together. What about the garrison tasks in the prisoners' camp and Menghai town? Wang Yaoshuan asked. I have reviewed the materials and found that there are many Chinese and other minority soldiers among the more than 200 captured soldiers of the South Wa State Army. We can fully mobilize and transform them, and based on 2 Red Police soldiers leading 10 prisoners to form a team, we can deploy about 70 guards armed forces. These armed personnel only need to give them some confiscated light weapons to carry out local stability maintenance and garrison work under the leadership of the Red Police soldiers. Even after the war against the South Wa State Army ends, this method can be used to digest and absorb the soldiers of the South Wa State Army. After Su Qian finished speaking, Chen Lin also felt that it was very feasible and agreed. In this way, the strong combat effectiveness of the Red Police Corps can be used on the main battlefield, and local stability maintenance and some border patrol tasks can be entrusted to the security forces, greatly reducing the pressure on the Red Police Corps in digesting and absorbing captured enemies. Even when necessary, these guards can be armed and used as reserves and cannon fodder for large-scale battles. So, Wang Yao, Su Qian, and Chen Lin had a detailed discussion and decided to draw a squad of Red Police soldiers, and then draw 60 Chinese and minority Chinese speakers from the prisoners to form a security force, responsible for overseeing the prisoners' camp and maintaining local stability in Menghai town. And while Wang Yao was actively preparing for battle, in Mengsa County, several motorcycles broke into the camp of the 778th Brigade of the 525th Division in the darkness and were almost killed. Fortunately, the other party shouted Wa language and was not caught in the fire. Later, they were taken away by the officer in charge of night patrol guards. Li Sha and others, who fled westward from Menghai town, robbed several mules and motorcycles in another town. Finally, they arrived in Mengsa County before dawn, bringing news of the unknown armed attack on Menghai town. Brigade Commander, we have verified that the Yanlong department in Menghai town has indeed lost contact, and the enemy has even destroyed the communication base station there. We are currently unaware of the situation in Menghai town. The staff officer in charge of interrogation at the 778 Brigade Command brought the latest intelligence. Yan Chunqing sat on a chair with a cigar in his mouth, looking at the golden triangle map hanging on the wall and frowning. Is it the group of people from Dongshan State? Yan Chunqing couldn't figure it out. There was still a local militia group between Dongshan State and Menghai, and they had enough to support themselves and fight against themselves. Moreover, even the Chanbang militia in Jingdong cannot silently annihilate all of their over 300 subordinates. Being able to deploy thousands of elite troops, as well as the power of tanks, the only area around Menghai, apart from the Zen militia closely related to the government army, is the Governor-General of Chiang Rai in the Kingdom of Siam to the south of Menghai town. But the Governor-General of Chiang Rai, who has been in office for so many years, only focused on making money and crossing the border without any reason to attack the Wa army, will not only face revenge from the Wa army, but also cause a deterioration in the relationship between Myanmar and the Kingdom of Siam, and even trigger local military conflicts. The Qing Lai Plain is located at the foot of the Wa State Army's mountains, and any attack from a high position will be at the disadvantage of Qing Lai. Yan Chunqing couldn't figure it out, so he said, send a special operations team to infiltrate and take a look. By the way, isn't the headquarters forming a drone reconnaissance battalion? Let them send 2 drones to Menghai. In recent years, Wa State has also been engaged in construction. Although the drug business has decreased slightly, the telecommunications fraud and gambling industries have developed, as well as the organ and plasma black markets, providing Wa State with a lot of funds. So in recent years, Wa State has also established some small units for jungle special operations. And drones are a new product that has only been introduced in the past 2 years, because compared to the Air Force's planes that often cost millions or even tens of millions, drones are still relatively cheap and have the ability to conduct aerial reconnaissance and strike. Training a drone operator is much cheaper than training a fighter pilot. Brigadier, the drone squadron is the commander's treasure, he may not agree, the staff reminded. If you want to go, you can go, said Iwaharu impatiently. Yes. The staff officer could only keep his mouth shut and go to seek instructions from his superiors. After the staff officer left, Yan Chunqing looked at the map and prepared to let the troops prepare tomorrow. He would wait for the intelligence from the Special Operations Brigade to come back and see what the commander meant. With this thought in mind, Iwaharu slowly walked towards her residence, with a beautiful woman waiting for her under the blanket.